everybody, and welcome to Enjoy English. I am your host, Shane.
Hi, I am Bernice.
Hi, Bernice.
Hi, Shane.
Well, you seem you have a lot of energy. Did you eat something good? To get something
food
good?
is very important, especially if everybody wants to live up their moods.
That's right. You want to eat something that tastes good.
Yes.
So in today's article, we're talking about the myth of the tongue taste map.
Tongue, your tongue.
So we've probably all seen this. It looks like a map of your tongue showing where you taste saltiness or where you taste sweetness or where you taste bitterness. They're saying that this is a myth. So they say here a wrong picture has long been considered correct.
Oh, okay.
Right?
So people commonly believe it is true.
Right.
But, well, it is not.
It's just a myth.
Yes.
Or mostly a myth. Right. So it's been long considered to be correct. So this for a long time. It's not just recently this came out and people just believe it like, like vitamin C will help you not get a cold or something like
become
that.
young.
Or
maybe.
whatever. I mean, this myth has been around for a long time. So let's jump into today's lesson and find out about this tongue myth.
Okay.
Okay.
The myth of the tongue taste map. You've probably seen the classic taste map before. It's a diagram of a tongue divided into 4 sections. Each one represents a basic taste: sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. The map suggests that we taste these flavors on certain areas on our tongues. However, this is a myth that has been proven wrong by experts. The idea of the taste map first appeared on a research paper published in 1901. The scientist who wrote it thought that different parts of the tongue had varying levels of sensitivity to the 4 tastes. Over the following decades, the scientific community gained a deeper understanding of how taste works and proved it false. Although some areas of the tongue might be more sensitive to certain tastes, these differences are ever so small. The truth is that we have taste receptors that are spread across our entire tongues, not just in certain spots. These receptors enable us to detect flavors all over our tongues. The next time you see a taste map, remember that it's not entirely accurate. Your tongue is much more complex than that simple graphic suggests.
Okay, so we've, like we said in the title, we're pretty familiar. Probably most people have seen this tongue map. I'm sure you have. Most people have, right? So it begins here by saying, you've probably seen the classic taste map before. Yeah, so
classic one.
It's classic, right? Like I can imagine, I can picture it in my head right now. You have little squared off or triangular pieces or little ovals that are saying where on your tongue that you taste different tastes, right? So it's a diagram of a tongue divided into 4 sections.
Oh, it's a diagram. It's a kind of graph.
Right.
Okay, people can see that, okay?
Yeah, right? So each one represents a basic taste. All right?
So that's why 4 sections.
Exactly. So we basically say that there are 4 tastes. I think they sometimes include a 5th taste. It's called unagi or ugami.
What language is that?
It comes from Japanese.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's kind of like maybe the taste that you would get from, MSG.
Oh.
That flavor, it's kind of like, it's like salty, but not quite like salty.
Okay.
But the basic map, this has been around for a while. It's just sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. So each one represents a basic taste. Sweet, sour, salty, and bitter.
Okay, so these 4 basic tastes. Okay,
Right.
so we can see that on the diagram. It shows 4 sections of one part is sweet and the other part will be sour, salty, and bitter. Because that is our tongue is actually, a human organ.
It is an organ, yes.
So it's very important to us.
Yeah, and it's quite complex, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the map suggests that we taste these flavors on certain areas on our tongues. All right, so flavors is basically what you taste.
Yes.
You call that a flavor. The sensation that you get is what we will call a flavor. So you can have like apple flavored if you want something that's sweet, or if you want something that's salty, maybe some potato chips, and the potato chips are barbecue flavor. You would say that the flavor is the thing that you taste.
Yeah, that's true. So suggest also means indicate, I-N-D-I-C-A-T-E. So we can say the map indicates something important. That is, when we taste these different flavors, sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and uncertain on some parts of our tongues.
Right, some areas or some parts. However, this is a myth that has been proven wrong by experts.
Oh.
So now we know here that this is a myth, and experts have done research. So we can imagine scientists have been looking at the tongue and found out that actually this map is not really correct.
It's a misconception.
Yes.
M-I-S-C-O-N-C-E-P-T-I-O-N.
Good spelling.
Yes.
That's right. Okay, let's take a short break and we'll be right back.
All right.
So, what is your favorite?
Sweet, of course, for girls.
So sweet. This is how you
Sweet
show
is my
sweet.
favorite flavor.
Sweet is your favorite flavor. Do you like salty things?
No,
Really?
no, absolutely not.
Really? So you're just all sweet all the time?
Well, sweet is my the first one favorite. Okay,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
second one I think that will be bitter.
What?
See?
What?
Bitter. Sometimes people say,
go from
well,
sweet
maybe
to bitter.
this is a myth because sometimes people say when you eat something bitter, it is good for your health.
Oh, so for
That's why.
you, maybe it's not that when you eat bitter things, you were like, wow, that's so delicious, but you're like, that's good for me.
Yes.
And I'm going to become very healthy after eating this bitter melon,
Yes.
for example.
You're right.
Right, yeah, I hate bitter things. I like sweet, salty, and sour, but I do not like bitter things.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so let's continue with the reading. The idea of the taste map first appeared on a research paper published in 1901.
Oh, pretty early.
Yes.
Okay.
So to publish means to make usually something in writing. You make that available for the public to read. And usually you will do that through a publisher, but in these days you can publish things yourself. You can publish things online. But it just means to make your work of art, in this case, we're talking about writing, available for people to read.
Yeah. Make this idea, this information available to everybody.
To make it so. So this, like we said, it's been long considered the kind of standard way to understand how we taste things. But this is going back to 1901. A lot of years have passed, and science, of course, has advanced by leaps and bounds. It's no longer the case that we're believing 1901 science, right? So, of course, in this time, we have been doing the research and figured out that, okay, this is in fact a myth. Okay, so the scientists who wrote it thought that different parts of the tongue had varying levels of sensitivity to the 4 tastes.
Oh, varying.
So to vary just means to be different in similar things, but different in slight ways, right? So they had varying levels, not just one level, but maybe a little bit here, a little bit there, but basically speaking, they believe that there are sections of the tongue that these 4 tastes are tasted on certain parts of the tongue to varying degrees or to different degrees.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
So varying also we use different, slightly.
Right, exactly. Okay. Continuing, over the following decades, the scientific community gained a deeper understanding of how taste works and proved it false.
False, not true.
Yeah, so to be false just means to not be true. So like I was saying before, it's been decades, basically over 100 years, like 12 decades basically since this was published. And in those decades, of course, scientists have gotten a much deeper understanding of how our anatomy or how our body works. And the organs, like you said, the tongue is an organ.
Yeah.
And how our organs work. We now have a much deeper understanding of that. So, of course, we are going to change a lot of things that we believed from 1901 when we come to present times. So now this taste map of the tongue has been proven false.
Yeah, because our tongue is unique and because it reflects both the health and the well-being of our body functions. So that's why this scientists, they spend a lot of time to do this research, and finally they figure it out that it was false.
Right, and the tongue is the strongest muscle in the body.
Yes.
Which is pretty crazy. So the tongue is a very important organ for us, right? We do a lot with it. We wouldn't be able to talk. We wouldn't be able to taste. There's a lot we could not do. We couldn't our tongue out at people.
Scare me.
Yeah, you couldn't do any of that without your tongue. So it's a very important organ. And of course, that's why a lot of research has been done on it.
Yes.
And now we know that it is false. So let's take a short break and we will be right back.
All right.
Okay, so we have learned now that, of course, there was a map in 1901 of the tongue that basically said that there is sweet, salty, sour, and bitter. And these are placed on your tongue. Places on your tongue are going to be sensitive to those flavors. So I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
Have you ever noticed when you were eating something that...
Of course not. I just swallow it.
You just swallow. You don't even use your tongue. It just goes right down your throat.
Yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, though, have you ever eaten something like, whoa, I really taste that on this part of the tongue? That sweetness, I really feel that on the front of my tongue or the back of my tongue or wherever it is. Yeah, it doesn't really seem to coincide with our experience either, right? So to me, it's not that surprising that, in fact, there are not just 4 sections of the tongue that taste 4 different flavors. In fact, it's probably much more complicated than that.
Yeah, but of course, when we eat something, we use different parts of our tongue to touch the food.
Yeah.
For example, if you want to try something new, maybe you don't want to swallow it immediately.
Maybe the tip of your tongue?
Yeah, just use the tip of the tongue. But we don't even know that there will be 4 different parts to help us to taste the different flavor.
And to be honest, if you've ever just used the tip of your tongue to taste anything, just the very, very, very tip of it, you can taste sweet, you can taste salty, you can taste bitter, you can taste everything just on the tip of your tongue. You don't have to shove it in your whole mouth, get it all over your whole tongue to taste something. So it stands to reason, or it's logical that this map is probably not very accurate.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's continue. Although some areas of the tongue might be more sensitive to certain tastes, these differences are ever so small.
Okay, so which means we cannot tell the differences very clearly because they are very small.
Yeah. And to be sensitive to something just means that you can experience it very, it's very obvious to you when you experience it. So if you say, I'm very sensitive to touch, that means when I touch you, you get a lot of feeling from that. So although there are parts of the tongue that are more sensitive to certain flavors, it's actually it's a very small difference than other parts of your tongue. Like I said, use the tip of your tongue, you'll know right away that you can taste every flavor, basically.
Yeah, usually, the tip and edges of our tongue are particularly sensitive to tastes.
That's
because these areas contain many tiny sensory organs. That is why.
Yes. So here I like the phrase here, the difference are ever so small.
Yeah.
So you could just say that the differences are so small or just so small, but ever so small makes it even, it basically emphasizes how small it is, ever so small. Okay, so continuing, the truth is that we have taste receptors that are spread across our entire tongues, not just in certain spots.
Yeah.
All right, so a receptor is something that receives something. So we can imagine that there are basically receptors or the parts of our tongue that are receiving information. In this case, the information of flavors or different tastes. And so these receptors are actually spread out all over our entire tongues. They're not just in certain spots, like the salt receptor is here, the sweet receptor is there. No, those receptors are everywhere, all spread out over the entire tongue. I keep wanting to stick my tongue out, and then I keep reminding myself that not everybody wants to see my tongue.
Yeah, no. Only the doctors, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
See, I just got to show my tongue again. Yeah. Okay, so talking about these receptors.
Yes.
These receptors enable us to detect flavors all over our tongues. Okay, so they enable us to detect flavors. Now, to detect something just means to be able to find out that it is there, to discover it.
To sense.
You can say here would be a good word, to sense it. So to detect, you have a detective, right? The person who goes around and tries to find out certain things, right? And try to find the answer. So you can imagine here what they are doing is they are sensing, like you said, they're finding the flavors, detecting them all over our tongues. So, right, like it said in the previous sentence, it's not just in certain spots.
Yes.
We detect these flavors all over our tongue.
Yes.
Which, again, if you do the tip of your tongue test, you will notice you can taste every flavor just with the tip of your tongue.
Yes.
Okay, so continuing along, the next time you see a taste map, remember that it's not entirely accurate. So like we said, you see these taste maps, you might even still, in some outdated materials, outdated textbooks, they might even still show this map of the tongue. You know, I mean, I feel like I've seen it in recent memory. I've seen this map of the tongue. I don't know if I was at a clinic or some doctor's office or something, but some people they still do believe this because it's so ingrained, it's so stuck in our minds that this is the way that our tongue works. That even till now, this myth is still being spread right?
Yeah, I saw this kind of diagram when I was a junior high school student. Yeah, on the textbook.
Right.
So that is not correct.
Yeah. Well, it's not, they say, to be an important modifier here is it's not entirely correct.
Not entirely, not
because
totally.
They did mention that there are certain parts of the tongue that are more sensitive to certain flavors. But the idea that there are sections of the tongues that just taste certain flavors is not entirely accurate.
Yes.
Okay. Your tongue is much more complex than that simple graphic suggests. So if we say something is complex, what do we mean?
Complicated.
Yeah.
Not very easy to understand.
Yeah, it's not easy to understand pretty much the anatomy of the whole human body is very, very complex.
Yes, that's
very
true.
Complicated. And we're still finding out things to this day. So even research now that we have about the tongue, within 10 or 15 years, more research is going to be done. We're going to know even more about the tongue, and we are going to gain knowledge just like we will about our eyes and how our eyes work, all the internal organs, how they work. There's still a lot to be understood.
Yeah, to discover.
And it's never quite so simple as a simple diagram would make things seem to be. The body is extremely complex.
Yeah,
right?
that is true.
Right. So, so I don't know about you, but I definitely won't be believing.
But actually, we learned a lot from this article about our tongue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting because it's an organ that we use daily, all day long, while we're talking, while we're eating, and even when you're not even realizing it, your tongue is moving around your mouth, and it's wonderful. You don't even feel it. It's just like, it just sits in there, and he's like a hidden gem.
Hidden gem.
Except when you stick him out.
Yes.
Okay, so now hopefully you've learned something and you can tell your friends. And if you see this diagram at the doctor's office, tear it off the wall and tell your doctor that he needs to update his scientific research.
Okay.
Okay, that's all the time we have for today. And hopefully you don't stick your tongue out at today's lesson because I think that it was very interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay, we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.